Okay, awesome. So, welcome to the Osteopathic Medicine Medical School panel, hosted by Pre-Prof. And today we are very excited to have three institutions represented on this panel, as well as some current students that are also joining them to be part of this discussion. Again, just to let you know, you can use the chat throughout the presentation, but we will have some time where we will take some questions from the floor. We will hear both Touro, then Michigan State, and then VCOM in that order. And then at the end, about 15-20 minutes leading to the hour, we will start our open questions. So thank you all again. Steve, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Okay, thank you so much for hosting us. So I'm going to begin my presentation a little bit more in the generic realm. I'm going to share my screen here. Okay, first and foremost, what is quite important to understand when considering medical schools and is understanding the difference between an MD and a DO. And this is all very brief. We encourage you to do your own research, shadow, and work with a DO that uses OMT, because that's really where you're going to see the difference. But as far as education is concerned, MDs and DOs are doing the same thing, except for DOs are taking more classes. They're taking courses in learning about OMT, osteopathic manipulative treatment, in philosophy and in practice. So therefore, when you say, I want to become a dermatologist, a neurologist, a surgeon, you're not pigeonholed into one or the other, because you can do anything and everything with either type of degree. But another thing that's important that you really need to discover on your own is, what kind of doctor do you want to be? Are you going to be the kind of doctor that looks at symptoms and treats symptoms, or are you going to say, well, how does one connect to another? As an example, um, when someone comes into the office with, let's say, a swollen knee, how are they going to treat it? Well, obviously there's something going on. So are you going to say, well, there's swelling, let's get down the swelling. We'll give you an injection, and send you to some PT. Or you can say, well, how else is it impacting the rest of your body? And another example of this, here is a swollen knee. So what would an MD do? They might look at, an external exam, do an X-ray or MRI if needed, cortisone shot, PT, take some Advil, and see you in a few weeks. But at DO, they're going to do possibly everything that I just mentioned, but they're going to say, you know what? How is your swollen knee impacting your hip and your torso, and your spine? And also, you are trained in different methods, and one of them that's really a hallmark of or not a hallmark, but a very frequent treatment in the osteopathic world is lymphatic drain. The lymphatic system in your body takes fluid from one part to another, and so therefore, if there's swelling, then guess what? That means the lymphatic system isn't working. And since the lymphatic system is going throughout the entire body, they're going to start with the lymphatic system at the top of your body and work your way down to help the body naturally drain. And guess what? They've reduced the swelling without injections, without drugs. So therefore, when people say osteopathic care is more holistic, this is just one example of that holistic type of care. But specific to Touro has three campuses. Slides. We have three campuses. Our first campus was in Harlem, New York City, and our second campus opened up in 2014 in Middletown, New York, and our third campus just opened up in 2023 in Great Falls, Montana. But no matter which campus you're going to, we have the same mission, and it's one curriculum, a course, three different campuses. Here we go. Harlem, Middletown, and Great Falls. And so basically, when you are considering different campuses, like I said, it's one curriculum across three campuses. So even though each campus will have no more than 135 new students every single year, we have the impact of over 400 students, which really creates a small campus feel with a big campus impact. And so another hallmark of the Touro experience is the delivery of information. Long before Zoom classes were popular, here are just some pictures from our various campuses and locations. Before
Steve,
the
your PowerPoint has stopped at slide 5. I don't know if you're
oh, okay. Are
sorry
we
to
are
interrupt you, but
thank you very much, Bill. I don't let's see. Are we doing better here? Does it say one curriculum across three campuses on the screen? No.
no, it's
No.
still the slide about the swollen knee.
Oh wow, that's interesting. Let's try this.
That's-
There and then share again. Is that better? Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. Sorry about
Yeah.
that. We won't go backwards because I have a limited amount of time, but like I said, one curriculum across three campuses. And what do we do in our classrooms? We use a flipped classroom model. The flipped classroom model, if you're not familiar with it, is the lectures provided to you before classes start in video format. And so therefore you're expected to have watched the video, learned from the video beforehand, before you get to class. And so therefore when you get to class, you're focusing on the goals and objectives of each video. And because it's a video, it's a great learning tool. Why? Because A, it's always going to be in your inbox. You're studying for a test 2 weeks later, you have the information available. You don't understand what was being said in the video. Guess what? You don't have to wait to class to get clarity. You just hit reverse. And suddenly a 30, 40-minute lecture becomes 25 minutes, but you're a great listener. Great learning tool. But that's one of the things that you need to get used to in the Touro experience is the flip curriculum across all classes. And like many schools, we take your mental well-being very seriously. We have many organizations to support you. We go some organizations. Each campus has a learning specialist, mental wellness counselor, and we pair you up with faculty and peer mentors in the beginning of the orientation. Let's see, and also we're big into community outreach. So therefore, when you come to us, one of the things that we expect and look for is your non-medical volunteer work. Here we go. And also pay attention to numbers. These are just some of the more recent results of our first-time pass rates on Comlex, because it's really important. But every campus has similar facilities. We have OSCE rooms where students practice with patient actors. We have sim labs. We have virtual labs. So we're really doing a lot in the classroom, outside the classroom. And we are also doing mission trips, around the world. Some more pictures. There's a picture from Peru, and we try and keep it real. Medical schools can be tough no matter where you go, but we try and keep it real, because, like I said before, your mental well-being is very important to us, and we have research going on at all three campuses. At the Harlem and Middletown campus, there's a little bit of what's going on right now. But in Great Falls, Montana, the McLaughlin Institute, which actually was just purchased by Touro University, and so therefore we have a major research institute right near the Great Falls campus. And when you get into your second year, here are some of the resources that we make available to our students. And finally, admissions requirements. Very typical. You can apply once you have 75% of your undergraduate coursework completed. And very typical prerequisites: biology, chemistry, organic chemistry. However, if your bachelor's is at a U.S. school, we do not have a specific English requirement. We're training doctors, not PhDs in English. So finally, MCATs. We look for a 498 as a minimum, but our average MCAT for those that we interview is typically around 505 to 507. And we look for a minimum criteria for going into the secondary application. We look for 3.0 general average, 3.0 science average. But we do require, but our average for those we interview is a 3.4 in both areas. And finally, Touro, all three campuses, requires both the Casper and Duet. And let's see, for the past years, and we will plan on continuing it, all of our interviews for the upcoming year will be via Zoom. And just to give you an idea of what's going on, we had during the 23-24 cycle, we had about 9,500 applicants, and we have more than 9,000 already this year. So the competition is rough. But I just wanted to present these numbers just to give you an idea of what to expect. And I always encourage students, be your own advocate. You know, if there's a school that you really want to go to, and you're not hearing from them, nothing wrong with reaching out to them. And that's fine. And finally, what makes a Touro competitive applicant? The MCAT, obviously, there's the academics, but as I mentioned before, spend time with the DO who uses the OMT, and that non-medical volunteer work is also very important. Housing, the Harlem campus, we have off-campus housing, but we're a very commuter-friendly campus. We have students taking the subway or the train or the bus to school every day. And Middletown, there's both on campus and off campus. In Great Falls, they have brand new apartments that have been built right near the campus. And our clinical rotations, if you're at a New York campus, it's going to be right around those campuses. The Montana campus, they have clinical rotations nearby and a little bit further away. And another big number to pay attention to is METRI. When we're averaging 97 to 100% depending on the year. So we really are quite successful in all three campuses that we use in. Finally, the road to medical school is not necessarily a straight path. All three campuses have available master's program, which mimics the first year of medical school. So therefore, sometimes people are better in the classroom than they are on the MCAT. So therefore, if you go attend one of our master's programs and you finish with a 3.45 GPA, you will have an automatic entry into the next DO class of that campus. So that's it for me. Try to keep it as short as possible. Marinella, are you on? I don't know
I
if she was
think
able to.
she is.
Yeah, hi, I'm here.
Hi, so this is Marinella. She is a current second
Hello.
year student at the Harlem campus. So very quickly, because we have a limited amount of time, Marinella, can you just tell everyone, where you went to school before Touro and what do you love about Touro?
Yeah, hi. So I went to Manhattanville for my undergrad, and then I got my master's at Quinnipiac University in health sciences. And the reason I chose to go to Touro, well, one of the reasons is that it's in my neighborhood, and I wanted to be close to my community. And Touro has a great way of doing that in terms of having so many community service programs and outreach programs that really make you feel like you're one with your community, which is wonderful and what I was looking for. And the other reason is I really enjoy the flipped classroom. It was one of the very few schools that did this. And everyone has their own style of learning. But for me, it's very important to be able to go through the material on my own and then show up to class prepared and be able to interact with the professors that we have and be able to also assess yourself with the quizzes that they give us in class. So for someone who really is driven and wants to do things on their own schedule, but then still have the school assess where you are at, I thought that was perfect for me. So that's a really big reason why I also chose to come to Touro.
Okay, thank you so much. And we'll be around for questions at the end of the session.
All right, I think I'm up next. So, good evening, everyone. I'm Felicity White, Director of Admissions at MSU COM. I'm joined by my colleague, Carmen Gamlin. Like my colleague from Touro, I'll try and give you just a really brief kind of 30,000-foot view of what MSU COM is all about, so we have plenty of time for questions at the end. I think one of the things that makes any medical school what it is the people. And at MSU COM, we really believe that people are the core of the organization. And that principle really is evident in much of what we do. As a student at COM, you're guided by a faculty who are both student-centered and community-focused. I think that dedication is really exemplified by the faculty's role as the largest single provider of pediatric care to underserved children in the greater Lansing area. They bring really extensive and currently relevant clinical experience directly into the classroom. And so you get that real world insight into your education. Community service is something that is deeply woven into the fabric of MSU's curriculum and their culture. Our street medicine programs, which are led by students, and they serve underserved populations across all of our medical school communities in East Lansing, in Detroit, in Macomb County. Those are student-led clinics that provide weekly care, working alongside faculty, of course, and volunteer physicians, other community partners, to kind of holistically deliver care to people who are experiencing homelessness. So that's one of the ways that you can see that reflected. When we admit students, we are looking for individuals whose values align with our mission, particularly those with a strong orientation towards service. I think you'll see that our commitment to service is mirrored by our support staff. They play a really crucial role in fostering student success. And so we can dig into outcomes a little bit upcoming. If you have questions about that, we can answer them. But I do think it's important to highlight that MSU COM students have access to a dedicated team of professionals focused on their success and their well-being. So these are teams that adapt and respond to evolving needs from our medical students, and they're offering support in areas like academic and career advising, wellness and counseling, financial aid, student engagement, leadership. You'll find staff in all of those areas who are committed to the success of our students. The culture is another important aspect of any medical school. Beyond the people, I think the culture is something that makes the college special. You'll find a welcoming environment here with a strong emphasis on inclusivity and diversity. Students from all backgrounds, we want to make sure that they feel valued and embraced within our community, and that is community with a capital COM. I think that you'll see that inclusive culture is influenced very heavily by our roots in osteopathic philosophy, which values kind of a whole student approach to education, much like that whole patient approach that you will find in osteopathic medicine. There's a sense of community and camaraderie among our students, faculty, and staff. That helps to create this supportive environment where people feel that they belong, where we can celebrate each other's successes. And while we can talk about how competitive the admissions process is, the experience once our students here is characterized more by collaboration than it is competition. COM's very dedicated to the art of caring. Our curriculum emphasizes that holistic approach to patient care, teaching students to treat the whole person, not just symptoms. And you'll find that thread among probably all of us who are talking about osteopathic medicine. We try to provide lots of opportunities for hands-on clinical experience for our students, even very early on in the curriculum. We want to make sure that you're developing your medical skills right alongside developing your bedside manner. And, it's through those kind of efforts that we're ensuring that our graduates are not only skilled practitioners, and certainly they are, but also really empathetic healers that are committed to improving their patients' lives. And so that's the kind of environment that you'll find at MSU-COM. You'll find that delivered across 3 different campuses. And so we admit about 300 learners each year. About 200 of those will be in East Lansing at the main campus of Michigan State University. And then we have 2 other campuses in Southeast Michigan. One at the Detroit Medical Center, which is a fairly urban environment, and then another, and about 50 students will study in Detroit, and then about another 50 students will study at the Macomb University Center, which is a more suburban location in Southeast Michigan. Same curriculum delivered across all of the 3 sites.
You
I
know,
won't.
one of the things I just have to
Yeah.
share about those 3 sites too, is that oftentimes when our students who are thinking about, oh, I'd like to have this R1, I want to go into sports medicine, or I want to go into research, or I want to be in an urban setting. The fact is, no matter which one of the 3 sites that you receive your education or your lectures, what have you, there is residential faculty that are there, but you can engage, be in Macomb, participate in Detroit street medicine, engage in the East Lansing student orgs. So you don't have to choose between urban, suburban, rural, Big Ten research. You get to have all 3. And I think that is always one of the things that makes it kind of unique.
Absolutely. We won't talk about everything that makes MSU-COM stand out here, because again, we don't have a ton of time, but some of the things that I want to point out that I think are fairly unique to this program. One is the opportunities that our students have for international experiences, both in the pre-clerkship and the clerkship curriculum. This is just supported by being part of a university the size of Michigan State University. We have access to experiences from, whether that's a 1-week spring break trip to work with patients in Central America, or a 6-week rotation in your 4th year in Malawi or in South Korea. You have access to those international opportunities for learning. There are several dual degree programs at Michigan State that might be of interest, in particular, a fully funded DO PhD program. And then maybe the last one that I'll talk about here is our statewide campus system. And so that is a coalition of 25 different hospital partners in the state of Michigan, where our students complete their 3rd and their 4th year experiences. Many of those hospitals within the statewide campus system are also home to residency programs. And so our students get to very early start to develop relationships with those residency programs. Those programs are very familiar with and confident in the output of MSU-COM. And so we see many of our students being able to match into those residency programs as well. And so those long-standing relationships with the college are something that is fairly unique to Michigan State, and I think is a strength of the program. We can talk about any of these other things that y'all have questions about when we get to that point of the evening. I'll share, again, just like some 30,000 foot view results here. You can see match rates for our last class at 99.6%. So can't do much better than that. I happen to know that the one student who didn't match intentionally. That student is taking a year to do some really intensive research before going into the match. You can see we're matching in a wide variety of specialties. Most of our students, as you would expect, are matching in the state of Michigan. And that's fairly typical of our results. But again, we can talk more about this if you have questions when we get to that point in the evening. I won't spend a ton of time on the admissions factors. They're really easy to find. Our team is very accessible. If you're considering applying to MSU-COM, I would just encourage you to visit our website. You can schedule an advising appointment with myself or another member of the admissions team. We'd be happy to talk to you, but I don't think that you'll find anything surprising in our admissions requirements. And then if you have questions after tonight that don't get answered, again, feel free to schedule a a future student advising appointment with us, or just reach out to com.admissions@msu.edu. With that, Carmen, is there anything that you want to add to that before we get to the Q&A portion of the night a little bit later?
I think this is exactly what we needed for sure today.
Great. All right, I think we've got one more presenter. So.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. My name is Bill King. I'm at VCOM. VCOM is a medical school with 4 campuses, which I'll share with you in just a moment. I work in recruitment and application services and work across the 4 campuses. I'd like to introduce Erin. Erin, if you wouldn't mind sharing. Erin's a student with us. She went to undergraduate in Baltimore. So Erin, do you mind sharing where you went to school before VCOM and the VCOM campus in your year?
Yeah, so hi guys, I'm Erin. I am a current second year here at VCOM Virginia, and I did my undergraduate degree at Loyola University in Maryland, so just right next door to you guys. And yeah.
Awesome. And by the way, I happen to go to Loyola as well. So Erin and I have a little something in common, although it was many, many years difference between the two of us. But I'm going to touch on a bunch of things, and I'll ask Erin to make a comment as we go along. I think you've heard some really great advice and some really neat things about osteopathic medicine and some other fine institutions. One of the things that I think is very important as you are choosing schools to apply to, and also putting together, particularly the secondary application of your process here, is to look at the mission statement of schools. And I bring to your attention 3 phrases in our mission statement. One of them being underserved populations, another being community focused, and another being globally minded. As you put your application together, if some of those things resonate with you, emphasize those activities, because those are going to be things that we look at, that we value, and also it'll really show the fit with our institution. For instance, if you're not really interested in helping people for the sake of helping people, if you're not interested in being part of the community or having a broad sense of working with populations of all types, you're probably not going to be a good fit for our institution. But you'll also see some other things, such as research here, which I didn't highlight, which are very, very important to us. But what we require are going to be more clinically oriented community types of things. Research is great if you have it, and I'll touch on that in just a moment. We have 4 campuses. At the Blacksburg campus, where we're affiliated with Virginia Tech, we have about 160 of our 180 students who either are from or went to school in Maryland, Pennsylvania, or Virginia. So we're pretty regional. We have a lot of students at our Spartanburg campus who are from those states, and also the 2 Carolinas, North and South Carolina. Auburn, we're affiliated with Auburn University, and our relationship there means we take students from the Southeast, which is like kind of Pennsylvania down over to Florida and over to Texas. And then Monroe, Louisiana is our newest campus. We graduated our class last year. So we have 650 seats across the 4 campuses. A tip that I have for you is that if you are interested in VCOM and you're kind of like, I prefer this one campus, but it doesn't really matter to me too much which campus I go to. On the ACOMAS application, you only have to apply to one campus, and then on the secondary, you get to rank them all. And the reason I say that is you can save yourself some money, because you check off a box and you pay per campus. So if you can rank them all, if you chose one, I want to let you know that. Now, outreach is also very important at our institution. We do a ton of things at our student organizations, and we also have really just phenomenal international outreach. What's unique about us is that we have permanent relationships. We go back to the same places. In the Dominican Republic, we have our own clinic. It's a VCOM clinic with an employee physician there, that community physicians and fourth year students who do rotations. And we also have two phenomenal locations in Honduras. Aaron, do you mind sharing anything that you think would be useful to these guys about, um, just outreach, like within the first 2 years, and just touch on global health just a little bit?
Yeah, so I actually did one of the mission trips. I did the mission trip in Honduras. So I went during 1 week over our summer break, and it was absolutely amazing. I think it's incredible that VCOM offers these trips for not only their second years, but also they have like a month-long rotation during either your third or fourth year. And it's really just a great opportunity to get out into these communities and really see what VCOM has established there. So like since we go back, we have like long-standing relationships with these people. And yeah, I just think it's a great experience and one of the reasons why I chose VCOM.
And Aaron, as far as clubs and activities within the first 2 years, because we're limited in time, I don't want you to go into too many details, but could you just give a little bit of a flavor to the group of the types of things that med students do in their first 2 years, in addition to studying and all the other things that we know they do?
Yeah, so in addition, we have a bunch of different organizations. So for example, I am in peds, I'm in OB-GYN, I'm also the dermatology chair within ACOI. We also have different types of clubs, just whether you want to do things like interest clubs. So we have pickleball or people who like to go hiking. We also do have on the side a deal with research distinction, which I am also going towards. So we definitely do have a ton of opportunity for research at VCOM. And yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I wanted to touch on the research with distinction degree. There are opportunities to do dual degrees, but of course, dual degrees take longer time. Could take 2 more years, that sort of thing. So, and another option we have is the DO degree with research distinction. So it's a research distinction degree. There's not such a thing as really a minor in medical school, but in this case, if you do research for at least 3 of the 4 years, many students do it for 3.5 or so forth, present at a national conference, at a regional conference, submit for publication, do a whole lot of different things that are required of you. You graduate with a research distinction degree in addition to the DO degree. And what's really nice about VCOM is that we have so many different partnerships. So right off the bat, we have partnerships at Virginia Tech, at Auburn University, at University of Louisiana Monroe, but we have partnerships with a vet med school, a pharmacy school, a couple other health profession programs. We have relationships at a cancer institute that's actually part with VCOM, and also some sports medicine areas and so forth. Plus, students often do research at our clinical sites that are international because we have those as actually, part of our community. Sports medicine is huge at our institution. Sports medicine is big because we take care of the athletes at Virginia Tech and Auburn and University of Louisiana Monroe, among others. And, Aaron, if you don't mind mentioning, like, you get emails that say, hey, we're fellows who are doing, sports medicine physicals at a high school or whatever. Do you mind just kind of sharing anything about that?
Yeah, so we actually have a sports medicine club here. And since we are affiliated with Virginia Tech, there's ample amount of opportunities to get involved in sports med. So like Bill was saying, we have opportunities to give sports physicals. There's weekly, if not like 3 times a week, 2 to 3 times a week, where you can actually shadow the different sports medicine doctors. You can be on the sidelines at Virginia Tech games. So we really have a really big sports medicine influence here, if that's something you're interested in.
Awesome. Like my colleagues, we have a very strong match rate. We're between 99.3 and 100% every year. We feel like we do a lot for our students as far as setting them up for success with their fourth year and the right rotation so that they can get a good residency, and helping them to be realistic about what the right number of choices are and things like that. You'll hear a lot about osteopathic medical schools going into, students going into primary care residencies, and we really value that. For most osteopathic medical schools, primary care includes pediatrics and OBGYN. At least it does at our school. But I also want to bring to your attention that like a school like ours with 650 graduates, that means that we have 200 people who are going into all those other specialties from anesthesia to neurosurgery to orthopedics to anything that ends in ology, including a lot of surgical subspecialties. So, certainly keep that in mind. As far as numbers, I really like to talk about ranges. 92% of our students fall between a 3.4 and a 4.0. We recalculate the last 90 credit hours for students who have finished their bachelor's degrees. So if you're a person who maybe your freshman year it wasn't as kind to you, or you changed your major, you started as an engineering major or something like that, we do recalculate that. The MCAT score last year, it was 502.7, so just a little higher than what I have here. And our typical range, about 90% of our students fall between a 498 and a 508. So that kind of gives you an idea of ranges. And then we too have a great master's program. We don't have a limit on the number of students we can take because we have from the master's into the medical school, because we do have 4 campuses. But essentially, if you have a 3.0, 3.1, 3.2 kind of GPA, we're going to look for you to do the master's program beforehand. And if you want to shoot our QR code, we have some phenomenal programs that would be an opportunity for a lot of you to be able to partake in on a via Zoom. We introduce you to osteopathic physicians. We have 5 physicians who attend a program every 6 weeks, and it's great to do that for any of the schools. So if you're applying to any of these fine schools, just getting that exposure is wonderful. We have events where you can talk to students and you can talk to students from certain clubs, and then those global health trips, we have students when they finish that they can go from there. So email address is right here. Bking, in case the QR code didn't work for you or I went too fast, bking@vcom.edu, and we can get you on that email list if you'd like. Erin, is there anything else that you would like to just say real quickly as far as advice for these fine students?
Yeah, I would say for me, a big deciding factor about where I wanted to go is when I visited the schools. So for me, the reason why I ended up choosing VCOM is because I really liked the community aspect here. Everyone was super friendly. And even now, as I'm a second year, I know every single name of all of my classmates. I see them all the time. We're all very close. It's not competitive at all. Like we have a group chat to share study resources. So that was a big thing that stood out to me here at VCOM, and which is why I ended up choosing here.
Perfect. My last question for you is, a lot of times students, particularly students who went to school in Maryland, because there's not a school in Maryland, and there's a growing number of DOs, but not just a ton. They're not quite as familiar. If someone is thinking, oh, I don't know if I want to go to a DO school, should I go to an MD DO school kind of thing? Do you have any insights or anything from your experiences? Because we know where you ended up.
Yeah, so really, I think you should probably try and get some experience with a DO physician. See if you can shadow them and gain any opportunities that way, or even like Zoom events that I know VCOM hosts and probably a bunch of other osteopathic medical schools, just so you can really see exactly what OMM is and really just follow your heart, see which way you want to go, if you want to go allopathic or osteopathic, just which way you want to go about how you treat people and how you think about medicine.
Sure. And I would recommend to you that if you're not sure or you just want to kind of explore things, to realize that we're all okay if you apply to both MD and DO schools. If you go on interviews and you get a sense of where you're the most comfortable and so forth, and if you get accepted to 3 or 4 schools, then you decide where you're going to go. If you get accepted to one school, that's probably the best school for you, So, sort of consider that and don't think of I should apply to this type of school first, and then I should apply to this type of school second, really going at parity and so forth, you really can be surprised. Just like Aaron said, you get on campus and you're like, oh, this is where my people are. This is where I want to be. So, all right. Zori, thank you very much for the time to share a little bit of information.
Yes, we appreciate it. I know that was like a mouthful, but it was really insightful. So at this time, students and applicants, we likely have quite a few people in the room that are likely going to be entering the upcoming cycle. We know that this is the time where it's important to hear some of these important details as you're thinking about fit. So does anyone have any question for any of the panelists at this time? You can unmute yourself and ask the question. And let me do this. I'll remove the spotlight so that we can all see each other. I don't see any particular questions. I also have an FAQ list when it comes to
I have a question, sorry.
okay, awesome.
Not quite an applicant or a student. Let me actually just go grab my video. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm Davina Colwell, and I work with Zori in the Office of Pre-Professional Programs and Advising. And my question, hi, my question is really for the students, and it's a bit of an open-ended one. But if you can give us a kind of a synopsis or an idea of what it was like transitioning into medical school, because we often get that question about just like overall preparation. If you can include like what you felt like prepared you academically for that, and also socially and professionally in this space.
Okay, I
Okay.
could start with that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay, thank you. So I am an non-traditional student. So going back in, had to just adjust in terms of schedule and just being super organized. That was really key in just setting a schedule for yourself and then just carrying that through. But really the thing that will help anyone, I think, adapt to any new situation is really surrounding yourself with a good group of friends and creating that supporting circle around you, because you're able to share information that way and you're able to keep each other accountable. So it's, even if you're not always interacting with your classmates or with your friends and you're studying together, it still feels super supportive and you feel like you're going through it with them. So it just makes it so much more doable. So I think, and I'm sure the other students will have other advice, but that was key. It's like you can work through anything and you can work really, really hard when you have good people around you. So I think that's one of the most important things, is finding good classmates that support you, and then also developing relationships with your professors, because they truly just want you to do so well. So they have so many tips and resources for you. So this just sounds like such, straightforward advice, but this is also just really key in maintaining that balance.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything she said. I think when you first get into medical school, when you start like the first couple weeks, it can seem really overwhelming because you're getting thrown a lot of information all at once. But I promise you, like we all figure it out. We all work together. Here at VCOM, like we all share study guides and share study source materials, and all of our professors have open door policies, so it's very easy to get in contact with them. And again, yeah, just finding like a good study group. And it's gonna take a while to figure out how you best study, but that's okay. Everyone's figuring it all out together, and eventually everyone gets there. So just take it one day at a time, and yeah, you'll get through it.
I saw a question in the chat. Thanks, Bill. Did you want to add on verbally to that answer, or did your written response suffice?
I think the written response is there, but it's a question that does come up, and I think it's just good for students to know what their opportunities are related to USMLE, and also not to get bogged down with it, because a lot of it is going to have to do with the specialty and the residency that you're going to be applying to. And for some people, taking both makes sense. And for other students, they don't want to do two tests and they don't want to spend the extra money. The other trick that's really interesting is that if you decide after you've done part one and you've only done COMLEX and you think, gosh, I really wish I had taken both, or, I'm applying to this place and it would have been nice for me to have that, you can take part two without taking part one of USMLE. So that's kind of like a little trick and so forth. So at all three of our institutions, you're going to get good advisement and so forth. And there are going to be a lot of students who take it anyway, just because they just sort of want to. But in many cases, about 80% of the cases, you don't need to.
Yeah, I'll add to that, Bill.
Sure.
Our theory on it is probably about the same. About 50% of MSU COM students will take both, but that's changing. It's changing in particular because step one or level one are no longer graded, they're pass fail. And so we're seeing fewer and fewer students taking USMLE step one. It really is a nuanced decision. It depends on what specialty you want to go into. It depends on what state you want to go into. So for us, if a student is looking at a primary care residency and they want to stay in the state of Michigan, they are very unlikely to take the USMLE. But if they want to go into a surgical subspecialty in California, there's probably a higher likelihood that that student would take the both tests. And so just like Bill is talking about, you'll have academic and career advisors who are with you throughout your journey through medical school. You'll talk to them about what the goal is, what the residency you're shooting for is, and you'll have lots of information and work with them to understand what must be true to get there. And if what must be true is you take the USMLE, then that student would do that. But it's certainly not required, and it's becoming less and less typical.
I agree. But let's next question on. Here we go.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's
the
the
financial. Yeah, I think every school has scholarships, but I can't speak for the other schools. But our school, most of the scholarships that we have are only decided on post matriculation. So you have to presume that you're going to you're going to go in paying the full amount. If it gets reduced, so be it. But also, just as a side point, since most students do fund their medical school life via student loans from the federal government, most of those funds are not available or dispersed until the end of the summer, and most medical schools are starting in the June, July, August range. So make sure you have funds available until those student loans get dispersed. And also, when you're borrowing, you don't have to borrow it all at one shot. You can take out a chunk before school starts or as school starting, and then go back for a loan increase to cover your spring expenses, in November, December. Save a little bit of money on interest.
Anything adding to that comment on financial aid? Okay.
I do. So I actually have a GI Bill, like a little bit left over from my undergrad. How do, like for each school, how do you guys kind of view that? Do you take like part of it and I have to still cover on the other half of it? Or do you, like how much of it will you accept for like tuition?
I would actually defer you to our one of our financial aid experts. They'll like look up the amount and go through it and so forth. But if you have GI Bill money, you will be able to use it. But as far as how it's dispersed in relation to the student loans and so forth, they would run through that with you.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for your service, by the way.
One of the things that we are lucky enough to have in MSU COM is a lot of students from the state of Michigan, a lot of students, like a third of 300 or so outside of the state of Michigan. And that also includes some international students too. And so it's a little trickier for them for financial aid. So as a whole, everyone's financial aid package is dependent upon, like Bill was saying, it depends on what you have left from if you may have done something undergrad, but there are lots of opportunities at every step of medical school. And for those that are U.S. citizens, loan forgiveness programs if you choose to work in a medically underserved population afterwards. So that could be federal government or um, uh, our underserved population, like a rural setting or an urban setting. So all of those things you just speak with the financial aid representatives for.
Right, there's another question about for the general schedule, do students purely learn from the first year and a half? Also, do the first and second year students participate in hospital shadowing visits within this time while they are learning?
But Touro, you're learning throughout the entire 2 years. It's just that during the spring semester, your time in class is reduced a little bit, so you can increase your board prep time. Um, and you, but if that's what you mean by purely learning, and as far as shadowing, it's available. And Mariella, just correct me if I'm wrong, but shadowing is available. It's not mandatory. But you can
Correct.
definitely, many of our staff physicians, or faculty physicians, invite their students to come with them on shadow them, when they're doing their rounds and stuff like that.
And do you mind sharing a little bit about early clinical experiences in year two?
Yeah. So at VCOM, we have preclinical experience. So we do all of our preclinical learning. So like in the classroom learning again in the first 2 years, except for your last block is completely off for dedicated board studying. And then throughout second year, we actually have a course that's within our curriculum called Early Clinical Experiences. So every single second year student has to do a specific number of early clinical experiences in order to get credit for the class. So these things do include physician shadowing and other different clinical experiences, which is really nice that VCOM actually provides them to you and you have to do them within your second year. But also there's a ton of ways to get physician shadowing here. Like I said, sports med shadowing happens basically weekly, and then we have a bunch of ties to local clinics, and you can just reach out to professors and shadow them anytime you really want.
I think it's also important to know that at all of our institutions, we have that extra training, osteopathic manipulative medicine, and you're working on a fellow student. And that is a clinical experience that teaches you the power of the use of touch, palpation skills, and having a connection with your patient. And you're rotating with students who are of different genders, of different sizes, and so forth. And it's often something that we hear from clinical preceptors in the third year that osteopathic medical students are just so comfortable approaching another person because they've been doing it for 2 years. And going in and looking at the person in the eye and doing all that, they're not afraid of that because they've been doing that. So that's kind of an extra little thing that um, really is wonderful preparation.
There's a question about the prevalence of non-traditional matriculants and average age. I'll say about 30% of our admitted students every year are what we would consider non-traditional, meaning that they're more than 2 years out from their undergraduate graduation. Gap years are becoming significantly more common, especially if students use those wisely to augment their experiences or address any deficits in their application. That said, our average student is still about 23 or 24. The range is, usually maybe 20 up into some students who may be in their 40s, but the average student is about 24-ish. I'm curious if that's the same for the other schools, but I would imagine it's similar.
It's very similar.
Yeah.
But don't feel that you need to be a science major to come to medical school. The head of our OMM department before she became a DO, she was a dancer. We've had Broadway actors, in our classes. We've had fine arts majors. You can do anything and decide and still be a great physician. Sometimes it's the non-science majors that bring a very different perspective into the classroom, which is very much valued.
Actually, I want to add on to that because I did art history as an undergrad, and it's it really teaches you how to look, like for example, if you're looking at a CAT scan or an X-ray or any imaging, really, you're so used to looking at images and looking for specific details that it really translates. So being a non-traditional student is to your advantage because you have different life experiences that you can apply to your clinical experience. And so it all ties in and it's really beautiful that way.
Well said.
Yeah. Okay. We are 1 minute away from the top of the hour, but we can take one more question if there's one that's burning. I did put the link to our YouTube channel where this recording will be posted. So just give us a couple business days to get that turned around. I don't see, I'm just making sure I didn't miss any question. I think. Okay, so last question. This is more addressed towards the medical students for the international opportunities. How has this helped you excel within osteopathic medicine, and what difference did you find when visiting those countries?
Yeah, so I did do one of our international outreach programs. I did the one in Santa Rosa, Honduras. And I think one thing that really helped me excel is it really helped me put my learning in the classroom into actual real life experience. So I was taking patients from the clinic every day by myself, doing a full history, doing a full physical exam, treating them, coming up with a treatment plan, and then presenting it to my preceptor. And I did that for 30 patients a day for throughout the entire week. And I think the biggest difference when visiting these countries is just access to care. So it really opens your eyes to what people have and how grateful they are. Also, you do a lot of OMM on these mission trips because it's something you can do right then and there, and then it can actually help the patients instead of like giving them a medication. So yeah, that was my experience. Great experience.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. We really, really appreciate the insight and information that each of you provided, not just about your institution, but I think the overall training and track of osteopathic medicine. So thank you again for this and all those that participated. Again, the recording will be posted to the Pre-Professional Advising YouTube page. And so we hope all of you take this information and think critically as you go on to your application cycle.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a great
Thanks for
night.
hosting us. Nice meeting everybody.
Sure.